So lagging might not be something that we can do too much about. So hopefully you've all seen the screen change now to an overview of the Bachelor of Media Design program itself. So the first year of the Bachelor of Media Design program is multidisciplinary. So it encompasses motion, graphic, and interactive design. And the reason that the first year is multidisciplinary is really to do with part of my own journey coming onto the program and part of what's happened in industry since I came on. So I came from a company called Interbrand, which are a global branding agency owned by DDB, which are a large advertising agency. So I came to work here in Aotearoa in Auckland for Interbrand and worked my way up to design director, creative director there. And the work I was doing a number of years ago encompassed motion design, graphic design, and interactive design for brands. And if you can imagine revamping something like Sky Sports, so you've got the Sky Sports branding with the logos across multiple channels, but then you've got how that logo iterations play out on screen, how they transition, how does that brand sort of look when it's in an advertising form in motion sequence? How does it look like when you're doing broadcasting graphics? You know, you've got analysis of players on the pitch, advertising, and so on. How does it look like when it goes into an interactive experience? How does it look like on your phone or your mobile device or web? So all of those things encompassing lots of different media platforms. So you have to really understand how to translate design across multiple different medium. And so that means that you need to know a little bit, at very least, about motion design, a little bit about interactive design and graphic design in order to be a specialist in any one of those areas. So what we tried to do in the first year is give you an overview of graphic, motion, and interactive design that will enable you to go and specialize in your second year in one of those majors. So I'll kind of go through how the program works in a little bit more detail later, but that's just kind of an overview, broad sort of spectrum of why we decided to make the first year multidisciplinary. Another reason is that, and this is quite prevalent these days, is that a lot of design now is moving into using UX methodology, so understanding user experience kind of always has, but it's really come to the fore now. And the program itself is based on those methodologies. So the first year, really, you'll learn a lot about UX design, a lot about how to understand the needs of the consumer or the user, and then look at a complex problem and provide a solution to that end user that is designed for them to use in a way that's seamless and easily and intuitive. So hopefully that kind of gives you a bit of a broad spectrum. The program is very much industry connected, and I guess at Media Design School, that's what you'd really kind of expect. A lot of our programs, no matter what you study really at Media Design School, are industry connected, and that's part of what we sort of pride ourselves on. And so this screen that I'm showing, like a slide at the moment, really is just showing some of that. It's the way in which we work inside live briefs and the way in which we work quite a number of briefs, actually, not just live briefs. So we have a client briefing, and this is the same process as you would have in industry. Some of you may know this already. Client briefing, you unpack the brief, you try to find out as much as you can about that product or service or about the brief, do your due diligence to research and unpack those things. And then you come back, and after your design investigation and your research, you'll come back and present your findings, initial findings, and maybe initial concepts in a series of work in progress sessions. And then through those work in progress sessions, which can be internal and external with the client, you form a better understanding about the subject, and you refine your concepts towards a really good outcome. And that's the process that we use. So if we have a live brief, in which we have many inside the program and lots of industry engagement, we actually have the people who we collaborate with, let's say Spark, for example, coming in and feeding back to our students. So in the second year, you actually form the nucleus of a design agency yourselves, a motion designer, a graphic designer, an interactive designer, and you respond to a real world problem. Let's say it's Spark, as it was this year, and there's a real world problem that comes in from Spark. You respond as that sort of little design agency back to Spark in a series of work in progress sessions. You get feedback on the work that you're producing and you refine it. You get feedback from your lecturers and guidance as you go. And you're also being taught content in the background. So this is just trying to give you a kind of a bit of an overview, flavor for the program itself. Huge amount of live briefs that we've worked with over the years. I might say at this point, can someone just give me an indication that they're seeing the screen with all the logos here, live briefs? Just flick yes if you can. Just making sure. Awesome. Yeah, so this is in the past, we've worked with lots of different people, the All Blacks on the All Blacks experience, Les Mills on motion content going to their gyms, lots and lots of different stuff. Last year, we worked with Spark on a project for Matariki. The year before, we worked with ASB Bank. We worked with Kathmandu on a project really about trying to get consumers to make more conscious decisions about the clothing that they're purchasing and reduce environmental impact. We did a project with Sustainable Coastlines about cleaning up New Zealand's waterways, for example. So lots of different briefs in there for lots of different clients. In 2023, we worked with Spark on Matariki, like I said. We worked with AT, Auckland Transport, on a number of different problems. They've got quite a few these days. Stardome are revamping their observatory and have done so. We worked with them on a project on that. MOTAT, we worked with a project with those guys in year one. And AI Forum, we worked with on a project for them, primarily really to inject AI methods into the program. We, if you're going to pride yourself as being connected with industry and connected with relevant current practice, we obviously want to be teaching you things that are going to come into effect and be prevalent when you finish in 3 years' time, and also be really prevalent in the industry, or any changes that are happening in the industry we need to encode in the program. So with AI and generative AI, we need to sort of get in and understand how that can empower your practice as a designer, and that's exactly what we did. We also work with DNA, which are a design agency. We've worked with lots of different people. This is just an example. DNA are actually located at the bottom of our building, which is pretty convenient for us. And so they came up and mentored our students through a series of workshops, I think it might be 5 in total, on UX methods and processes. And so taught by sort of industry coming up and getting something back into education alongside your lecturers. They also took a number of our 6 students through mentorship for our capstone panel, which is something that happens right at the end of your study. So that's pretty cool. We have a lot of different guest speakers coming to the program. Someone like Nick McFarlane, you might recognize if you're sort of traversing around the design world. Designed one of the Prodigy album covers. Prominent agencies like Journey Digital, DNA. John Penn is one of the founders of Adobe. Madeline Newman is from the AI Forum, talking about that AI experience and artificial intelligence, machine learning. And we also have some of our previous alumni coming back, someone like Mona Garber coming in and talking about inclusive content online and designing interactive experiences that can be shared for sight impaired, hearing impaired, and those sorts of things. We win a lot of awards. We won 2 golds, 4 silvers and a bronze this year at the Best Awards. I would encourage you to go and have a look at the Best Awards. They're the Designers Institute of New Zealand Best Awards, and you can just Google that. And you can look at the outcomes from all the top sort of schools in Australasia through there. There are a couple of international schools that go in as well. You'll see industry, best of industry submission, and you'll see the best of outcomes from student submissions in there, especially in Aotearoa, New Zealand. So would advise you to go and look at those because those outcomes will give you a good idea of what's taught within inside the program itself. And you can see a couple of our winners from 2023 across digital, motion, public good, product design even, all coming out of the Bachelor of Media Design program. These are some examples of last year's. We won a couple of awards out of New York, which of course 77 awards and a few others. Just going to talk about the majors now. So I'll talk about interactive design. So interactive / UX design. We call it interactive design really because web design has moved beyond the web now, beyond what's in our phones or even on our devices like our computers, and into public spaces. You know, when you go to a museum, you're involved in interactive experiences, even on street level. Some of that's coming in New Zealand, but it's quite prevalent overseas, where you've got interactive digital highlights, or at bus stops, and you've got that digital display at the bus stop. Now is a screen here that will flick between different advertisements, but you know, that can have interactive capability and all sorts of other things. So as we move into the Internet of Things and that connection of our devices across our lives, so our mobile phone, our car's got a screen. For some people, quite a lot of people, but some fancy rich people's got even much more sophisticated screen. Your fridge at home, lighting at home, all sorts of different things have this interconnectivity, which is called the Internet of Things. And so devices are connecting and talking to one another, and interactive experiences are happening across multiple different devices. So that's why it's called interactive design. This is a couple of examples here. This is a student of ours who a few years ago won a Red Dot International Design Award, and is a nice example of someone using their skills and aptitude across motion, graphic and interactive design that they learn in year one, and then applying that into their major across year two, and then going into their year three study and developing a project that is really primarily about interactive design, but uses the skills of motion design and graphic design in their end outcome. And this is Rose Norgrove. Won a huge amount of awards from this project, which I guess you know, when you see the work, it's kind of understandable she did so well. She put a huge amount of effort into it. She's a type 1 diabetic, like my little girl, and she decided to unpack the design problem, I guess, or user problem of a type 1 diabetic, which she's one, of using multiple devices. So a type 1 diabetic would have a blood glucose reader to take their blood results, glucose results. They pinprick your thumb or your toe or whatever it might be, get your results. You've got an insulin delivery device, which can be a pen or can be a pump. So there's a few different devices there, and they also sync into your mobile phone. The way in which they sync into your mobile phone can sometimes be fragmented, so there are multiple different apps for it. Or if they are connected, the information is delivered in a very kind of clunky way and not intuitive, and not in keeping in a way that understands the user's needs. You know, so if you're out at dinner, for example, you don't really want to be picking up multiple different devices and checking all of these things. You want to pick up your phone really, but see the information that you need really intuitively, really quickly. And so that's what she set out to do, create a better experience for type 1 diabetics using these multiple devices. I'll just play the video. Forgive me if it's a bit laggy, but I'll just play this one. Okay, so that was Jewel. Picked up a number of different awards, and hopefully you can kind of see how the student was able to use some of her experience in motion design to really bring some of that, explain some of the story behind the device that she created. Not a product designer, but she won an award, gold for product design. She won a gold for digital design, so interactive design. Um, and she won a gold for public good, which is designs that seek to do some public good in the world. This is another one. Another student here with these two golds from 2022, and this is a guy called Ryan Beck from a couple of years ago. He is now working over at Datacom as a UX designer. Datacom are a quite tech-driven company here. For those of you who don't familiar with Auckland, there's a kind of like a, describe it like an innovations precinct that we have that has things like IBM, Datacom, Google. Google are in the same building as ours. And so it's the sort of innovations precinct with lots of design companies and tech startups and established tech companies as well. So he works for one of them, Datacom. When he was in study with us, he developed this product service, I guess, called Stellify. Might play this one for you quickly as well. This one, don't want to bring anyone down, but he was with us during the pandemic, and his father passed away sadly, and he couldn't connect directly with his family, so he was looking for something to solve that problem. A closed device network, I guess, where you can collaborate and share, collaborate really, but share your experience with loved ones over the internet, but do it in a sort of safe way and closed way. And then also share some of your thoughts with your loved ones. And then at the end of the process, you kind of use your mobile phone to cathartically send a star into the night sky, and it goes from your mobile phone into your onto your computer screen and then up into the night sky. I'll just play this one for you guys so you can kind of see what I'm talking about. There we go. Another project here, but I'm not going to play the video for it. This one picked up a couple of awards out of New York, called 77 awards, and a silver domestically at our Design of Institute of New Zealand Best Awards. So this student, Lily, is now working out in the industry, strategic brand agency, digital design agency, and her final year project was really looking at a problem that's close to home as well. Her dad's a farmer, and sort of staunch Kiwi farmer, trying to encode some sustainable practices into his farming, but a little bit unsure about it. And so she started to investigate how farmers could use an application while they're out and about on the farm. Obviously, they need to be going around looking after livestock on the land. So they need something that's really intuitive to use and connect in real time. And so she decided that they need a community. So a community inside this application that can advise on best practices for sustainable farming in real time. And so that's what she did. She created this application that does just that. And she picked up a couple of awards, as I say, out of New York internationally for a farming app. So it's pretty cool. I won't play that one. Just go on. Motion design, just to give kind of a little example of a motion design outcome, and you can encourage you to go and look at the best awards for 2023 awards, because we picked up some awards in there for motion design. But this one that I'm pulling out is from Toitianga, which is projects that have a sort of Māori co-design aspect to them. And this was a live brief we did with Panuku. And the reason that I'm going to show you just a brief video is that it's sort of connects an interactive experience, motion experience, and graphic design really well. And kind of simply unpacks a problem. Now, the problem was that, or problem that Panuku came to us with, is that for Matariki, they wanted to convey a narrative that they developed, an audio narrative that they recorded from existing narrative, obviously, about the Phi creation story. And it's a really beautiful piece of work in terms of audio, with no visuals or anything else with it. But they understood that what they found through playing this in another event was that people listened, but families, it was incredibly hard for the kids to really pay attention for the entire sort of sequence of the narrative, of the story that was being told. And so their challenge to us really was for our students to create some kind of immersive interactive experience that used a little part of this audio or all of the audio. And so that was the challenge. And this is what these guys came up with. This one hasn't really got any audio. What happens here is you've got different scenes. So the different scenes are designed by a motion designer. And the idea is that there's different chapters to the audio, and you go up and you place your hand on one of those hand icons, and that activates a motion design sequence that just happens, a small little sequence that happens and plays out on the screen. So the audio is playing in the background, and kids and families can go up and, like my kids would go up, and they did go up and press different symbols on the screen and activate different things to keep them engaged in the overall story. Fully working prototype, all of these examples that I'm showing you. And we had this downstairs in the foyer of our building for some time, just sort of demonstrate some of our students' capability. A little bit of audio at the end there, you can hear some of the sound. There we go. Graphic design outcome, just a real quick sort of overview here. This is a one of our former students who was back as a panelist this year, has gone off to work as a multidisciplinary designer for Isthmus. Is freelancing as well at the moment. His project with a team was a project called Woven, and was all about trying to explain the significance of weaving for Māori, and connect other people who might want to understand more about weaving process that aren't Māori, that maybe Pacifica, or my mum weaves and she's Irish, for example. So sort of coming together in these workshops and understanding different practices around weaving, but at the same time understanding some of the narrative and learnings that come from the weaving process. Picked up quite a few different awards. I won't go too much into it there, but you can kind of see some of the graphic skills. So first year, multidisciplinary, come to the program, lots of UX methodologies, lots of problem solving. You're always working on a brief from day one. So you come in from day one, you'll be hit with some form of brief right off the bat, and you'll be responding to that in the background. So you're always responding to a brief, you're always working on something creatively, but then you're also learning Adobe Creative Suite, for example, theory of design, typography, semiotics, all sorts of other things in there in your learning journey. Photography for us, you can see in term 2, just to explain, encompasses moving image as well as static sort of image, and there's it can even be out into projecting onto buildings and all sorts of different things. The Digital Image Foundation is primarily Adobe sort of Creative Suite, and Contextual Study is the theory behind design. As you move into Interdisciplinary Design Foundation, which is in term 3, that's when you start producing outcomes across motion, graphic, and interactive. So you produce an outcome specifically for graphic, an outcome specifically for motion, and an outcome specifically for interactive design. You know, so might be using some Figma and a little bit of coding. You might for interactive design, for graphic design, using maybe InDesign, Photoshop, Illustrator, for motion design, using some After Effects, for example, and packaging up and responding to a brief across all of those 3 disciplines. Term 4 is essentially creative advertising. So in the world of design, there is design that we've just sort of experienced in some of the examples that I've shown to you, but then there is also a broader sort of creative ideas that might be about a pop-up experience that might happen in the city, or in an advertising sense. So it's important not only to understand how to solve design problems, but also how to then sell that concept or that design solution to a wider audience. And so that's essentially what term 4 is. Lots of different briefs this year. We have just finished working with Birdcare on a live project. The year before, I think we worked with the band Citrix Inc. On some album work and motion sequences and all sorts of other stuff for them. Obviously be different when you come on, changes every time. Year 2, as I said, specializations across motion, graphic, and interactive design. You choose which major you go into. If you go into graphic design, obviously you're going to be building more understanding of branding and digital design, as well as publication design. It's not just print-based. We don't think of it like that. We think of graphic design as being much more digital and all-encompassing. If you go interactive design, learning more about UX, but also about HTML, CSS, Figma, JavaScript. In motion design, After Effects, Blender, animation principles, and so on. So a real deep dive in term 1 into your major, and that's where you split from being in classrooms, whether it be online or physically, with your cohort across motion, graphic, and interactive in year 1. So you split into a class specifically just with people taking graphic, motion, or interactive. and get taught by a specialist in those areas. Real deep dive into your major, term 1. Term 2, you come back out and form that nucleus of a design team that I was talking about, and you respond to that real world live brief, just like I was talking about with Spark this year. Term 3, come out of that group project and you go into a individual project where you kind of unpack a real world design problem. And then term 4 is your chance to really kind of explore new technologies, new mediums, and maybe cross back over from interactive design, maybe emotion design, and create some kind of gestural interplay or do something interesting with technology. The guys that were creating the interactive touch wall that you went up and you touched the screen, that prototype came from experimentation that happened in term 4. Essentially, it's Arduinos and Raspberry Pis that they used, and some foil behind the board, and so that when you press on the board, it forms a connection and triggers an activation, just like pressing a key on a keyboard, F1 for example, and that triggers an animation sequence. In the creative advertising component at the end of term 4, you'll probably be involved in a D&AD live brief scenario as a group. You'll be involved in group projects in term 2, in year 2, in year 1, and in year 3, with a variety of different stakeholders of people that we collaborate with. In year 3, some key components in here are another live brief that you undertake. Really important for your portfolio to have kind of a balance of work inside education and then work that I guess someone who's sitting outside of education in the industry can see and note as having relevance to their experience. So, you know, working with real world clients is something that they really want to see. They want to see that you've been able to respond to actual real world problems and go through that process of presenting back and be good at doing it and talking about your design decisions. And so again, it comes up in year 3. Portfolio, really practical thing. You're going to need that to go to industry with. Obviously, we're trying to get awards in there to get you a step up the ladder and to get you noticed. And then in capstone, you put all of what you've learned from the last couple of years into a real big final major project that happens across 2 terms, a whole semester, 16 weeks worth of study, and you produce your final kind of outcomes for the program. They can be quite diverse, and we've just had an end of year show. These are some examples from last year. Wowbox, the one that's the largest on this page, that product there picked up a product design award, a digital design award for interactivity, and one other, I can't remember what the other one was. And this device essentially has not just the device itself, there's multiple devices, but there's also an online version of this outcome. Essentially, the problem that he was undertaking was, or looked at, was being creative and someone who's really into music and really into design. He lives in quite a built-up urban area and lots of peripheral noise around, sort of disturbing his creative practice. And so Wowbox takes different sound samples from soundscapes in Aotearoa, so specifically in the forest or elsewhere, soundscapes that happen, and then in an analog sense, you can kind of reframe those soundscapes by flicking some of these switches and the dials and create this kind of ambient sound that will set and drown out some of that peripheral noise that happens in the city. There's an online experience that you can do just the same thing as having the box, and then all sorts of other stuff that you created. Bottom right hand corner is an app that helps you track your moles over a period of time. because if they change, there's quite a lot of skin cancer in sunny place like New Zealand, well, hopefully something this summer, and helps you track those over a period of time. Just to give you some examples. The Bachelor of Media Design has 2 intakes. February intake this year, that will be starting on the 19th of February 2024, and then again in July on the 15th of July 2024. The first year can be fees free. I think one thing I would sort of note in terms of portfolios that I see obviously on a day-to-day basis, and speaking to students about their portfolios, one thing that does get missed sometimes is your personal work. And I always would encourage you to go and include some of that personal work. If let's say you're coming from school and you're really interested in design, and you've created some outcomes while you've been at school for NCA, that's fantastic, and that work's always really, really good to see. But also I'd encourage you, if you're doing anything in the background, like you're really interested in photography, for example, include those things, include that sort of passion projects and things that you're interested in that show your aptitude and passion for design. You don't have to be someone who is using digital design prevalently, like you see in the examples that I've shown. We teach you those things. We teach you how to unpack design problems. We teach you how to use the software, basic coding, all of that sort of stuff. So you don't really need to have all of that before you come in, but what you do need to have is a clear passion for design and problem solving. And that needs to come across somehow in your portfolio. Hopefully that helps a little bit. Right, so I've probably gas bagged for quite long enough. Are there any questions from anyone? And I don't think you can turn on your mic, so it probably will just have to be in the chat. And I might just stop sharing my screen. So let me do that. Understand if no one's got any questions. Let's see if I can think of anything else.
Participants, feel free to ask any questions you have about the program or enrollment in the chat box, or you can also join the Q&A session later at 4:45 p.m. for both domestic and international queries. So we've got one question, Jim. It's regarding the deadline for the February 2024 intake. We ideally recommend you to apply as soon as possible to avoid any disappointments, because there are limited seats available for the program. Ideally, we would, if you want an offer of place this side of the Christmas, we would advise you to apply by the 1st of December. However, we do take some late enrollments, given how many spaces are available in the program, but that will depend on a case-by-case basis. So we would recommend, especially if you're an international applicant, to apply by the 1st of December.
Fantastic. Great question. Anyone else got a question?
Not sure. Anyway, hasn't got any questions that you can mind?
I think, Jim, you have done such an elaborate presentation. It has answered all the questions they might have. Oh, look, we have one question regarding domestic enrollment. I don't have NCA credits, but I have completed a level 4 certificate in digital media and design. Gain me a credit. Right. Yes, absolutely, Alyssa. What I would recommend, you make an application for the program with the qualification that you've completed at level 4 in digital media and design, along with the portfolio that you created in the program. And the academics, which is Jim and the team, will have a look at your application and portfolio, and we'll review it on a case-by-case basis. But given similar situations such as yours, students who have completed a level 4 qualification, either be 60 credits or 120 credits, have been accepted into the program. It will depend on your portfolio. So we recommend you to apply.
Awesome.
Oh,
So in terms of what?
And it's just a few more minutes, just in case anyone else has any further
typing through the
questions.
questions, yeah.
Otherwise, I guess we'll wrap things up and let everyone else
Yeah,
get back on with their day. Hopefully the sun is out.
sun is out. Yeah, I think enjoy the
There
day
you go.
outside. But then again, Jim, we do have a session, like I said, for all the participants here, a Q&A session at 4:45. Please join that session if you have any specific questions regarding domestic and international enrollment. Yes, if you've, so they've got a question regarding completing a foundation program in Canada. And they want to consider that qualification towards a bachelor's degree. Usually if you've completed a foundation program, which is a level 4 qualification, it will not transfer into a credit transfer into the degree program. However, we need to have a look at the qualification that you completed. If it's a level 5 or above qualification, equivalent to New Zealand qualification, we can look into credit transfer. But then again, Ishita, what I would recommend, you make an application, submit the documents for us to review, and then we can advise to you based on that qualification that you have achieved. I'll put some inbox details here. If you have any questions, you can reach out to us in domestic at Media Design School. For domestic enrollments, if you have any questions regarding international enrollment, you can reach out to us at international at Media Design School, and we're going to get back to you.
Thank you so much.
Awesome.
Great. Thank you so much, Jim, for your time. We'll wrap this session up, but like I said, we'll look forward to you meeting the participants at 4:45. Thank you for a lovely session, Jim. Have a nice afternoon.
Thank you. Thank you, Sabrina. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.